Today in our workshop, we touch upon, I put a term on it, job security. Instead of talking about foreign talent policy, instead of putting what CCAR, well, as a topic, but the topic is the key, job security for Singaporeans. Job security actually affects everyone, not only the young people who are looking for jobs. You also have to do with people who are at the middle age, where you will felt threatened by being displaced by the uh, foreign labor. That means those on E-pass or S-pass, so on and so forth. Because once you reach 45 years old, your salary tends to be high because after 10 to 20 years of service to your company, every year they have an increment of wages, and it becomes a liability to the company. And the company will definitely want to retrench you and replace you with someone who is younger, cheaper, and faster. Right? The first famous term from by our dear Mr. Lim Swee Say. Now, but is it justified? That's number one. Now, I'm going to show you this. Right? We are not against. We are not. I'm in particular not against foreign labor policy. Right? I explain why. Not against this, but if and only if it benefits Singaporeans at large, not only the economy, but Singaporeans at large. Okay, this is very important, and this is where the difference lies between my approach, my policy ideas versus PAP. I'm going to explain slowly what is the crux of the matter of all this foreign talent policy or foreign labor policy. When we want to talk about foreign labor policy, we must always look at our population policy first, right? Our population growth, demographic. Now, we all know, and we cannot reverse the serious impact. It was PAP which have screwed up the population policy right from 1970s. Why have we say that? As a young new government, they felt that they have difficulties of coping with so-called relative terms. Back then, it's about should be slightly less than 2 million people. They already have this apprehension or difficulties of thinking of coping, creating jobs for Singaporeans back then, right? Because we were a young nation. So they came out and they project, the projection is actually uh, not very good, well done. They project, oh, if our growth rate continues like that, then we will have difficulties of catering, providing jobs for our people. And definitely, if you don't provide jobs for our people, go hungry, they'll lose power, right? Or they don't have the capacity or vision of the capability or ability to cope with 3 million, 4 million Singaporeans within a short period of time. It's irony, now they can cope. Back then, they don't think they can cope. Okay, so they came up with the two is enough policy, right? Demographic. Old people normally smaller portion of the whole percentage of the whole population. So it's actually a bell shape. We call it a bell shape or triangular pyramid shape, right? So we have a very healthy fertility rate back then. Now, I'm basically someone who are being penalized by the two is enough policies. My parents have been fined $50 back then. $50 back then is very big. If you use a purchasing power parity to actually compare what $50 can make. Now, back then, 5 cents can buy you a big bowl of noodles. Now it's how much? $5. So so that's 100 times, right? 100 times. So $50 in 100 times is $5,000 in current. That's a very basic comparison. $5,000 at current price. A fine of $50 back then to give birth to me. Luckily, my parents didn't go for abortion, or else you wouldn't see me down here. Okay, so they have this absurd two is enough policies, and it did a very quick reversal in the population growth. By 1980s, they started to realize their own policy, their very own policy of two is enough, is over successful, and creating is going to create problems by 1980s. And they start to talk about aging population in 1980s already, because the projection is very simple. It's a statistical projection. If you start to have less and less baby, then the bell curve will become a straight one. Okay, then it becomes an inverted bell curve. That means you will have more people in the retirement age, less people working, even less people who are studying. Right? It is not going to be sustainable. They have already projected that in 1980s. And they are more worried about graduate mothers not having babies because they believe in genetics. Right? But that is another story. It cost them 2 seats in 1984, right? Because of graduate mother policy ideas. Okay. So this is the first mistake they made, messing around with population policy in an extreme manner. Okay. Now, so this mistake cost us dearly because it set along all the problematic population policy that we are facing right now. Now, if you remember, just about 2 weeks ago, the statistics department actually came up. Is it statistics department or some ministry came up with a report? Right? At the current moment, we have about 19%, nearly 20% of people who have reached beyond the 65 years old. Why 65 years old is very important. 65 years old is the official retirement age. All right. It means that almost 20% of our indigenous citizens are reaching retirement without income. And the worst part is, right, because of the asset enhancement program, which allows people to use their CPF to buy HDB flats and all that, a lot of them do not have enough savings for their retirement. And the retirement expectation is around 20 to 25 years because the expected lifespan at current rate is about 85 years old, right, to 90 years old. So you would expect to live another 20 to 25 years for retirement. But by simple calculation, they know the stats, right? Because you just look at the CPF, you know how many of them can actually sustain for 20 to 25 years of retirement. So the second policy mess they made is actually the HDB and the CPF. They allow people to use CPF, which is meant for the retirement, right? And that is a mess they have created, right? And it was said that within another, by 2030, yeah, I remember correctly, by 2030, there would have been 25% of citizens reaching retirement age. 25%, one quarter, right? And you must remember, if you trace, demographic is very simple projection. If we trace our birth rate right from the 1970s, right, or right from the 1960s up to now, you can see a trend. It has been going downwards, right? There might be some variation, but it's going downwards, and it's getting worse and worse. That's why our fertility rate at the moment is 1.08, and the Chinese fertility rate is even worse, 0.87, right? The replacement rate should be 2.1 to 2.4. That means we must have enough babies, more than 2 babies each, to replace our population, but it is worse, right? So PAP know about this. The problem of this aging population is if you have 25% of people who are going to retire, and when you age, what is the biggest expenditure actually? Healthcare, right? So the PAP kanchong, they have already seen this. So in order to get tax revenue, their mindset is only to replace the lost tax revenue, potential tax revenue due to aging population, right? By doing what? By increasing foreign labor in Singapore. That's why we have 40% of our population are all foreign laborers. Okay, foreign laborers, 40%, foreigners, right? We have 3.7 million Singapore citizens. That is already included a lot of new citizens, 3.7 million. But our total population right now is about 6 million people. That means, that means more than 2 million people are foreigners. Or would I say about 2 million people are working, foreigners are working in Singapore. Now, 25% or 20% of 3.7 million who have retired, reach a retirement age, is how many? Very simple, 20% of 3.7 million is about less than 800,000, correct? But why would we need 2 million foreign labor? If you talk about taxation, because I lost, naturally, we will expect about 10% people who are under retirement, but now we have 20%. Right? So we have to replace the 10% of people. That means about 370, 400,000 people only to cover the loss of tax revenue, because they are no longer working. You cannot tax them, correct? But we have 2 million people in 2 million foreign labor in Singapore. So PAP is damn kiasu. Right? Damn kiasu. Yes, in the aging population, we will have a tax burden, right? Because the number of people that retires is going to be greater. And we have a shrinking workforce, citizen workforce. Definitely, there will be a reduction in tax revenue. In order to replenish or prevent tax revenue from going down, that's number one. Number two, of course, is GDP. You have less people working, your GDP will actually regress, right? But that is another matter. Then you have to just replace the loss in the potential loss in workforce due to aging population. But instead of replacing the 400,000, right, to get it balanced, they put in 2 million people. So this is the case. It is a case of excessive foreign labor, right, due to the pressure of tax revenue, right? So basically, what I mean is they are not actually considering job security for Singaporeans, put it that way. They are more considering the potential loss in tax revenue, or even one more tax revenue, as it is. Imagine, right? Imagine way back in the 1970s. We have to find a job for 1 million people, right? Correct? Because 2 million people, 50% is working in a workforce, right? We have to find a job for 1 million people, right? Create jobs for 1 million people. No sweat, right? Now our workforce is about less than 2 million people, right? No, about 2 million plus, sorry, 2 million plus. Because after you deduct the 20%, 3.7 million, you deduct the 700,000 people, right? You have 3 million people, but you still have the schooling people, age 1, the babies to 21 years old. Put it that way. So you have slightly less than 3 million people. I think the workforce is about 2.5 million people. To create jobs for 2.5 million people, and due to the low birth rate, declining birth rate over the years, we are not going to expect to create more and more jobs for future generation. In fact, the number of jobs that needed to be created for the future generation actually shrink. Okay, notwithstanding that we are getting new citizens. So PAP's logic of we need to have more foreign labor in order to create more jobs for Singaporeans is actually flawed. Why? Because you are having less people, less Singaporeans who need to have a new job, what? Aging population, what? So 那个是假议题 is a false premise. The real purpose is actually for tax burden, tax revenue. Right? That's why I put it as job security. And I'm going to show you Singaporeans is not in this foreign labor policy. Singaporean is not their priorities anymore. The priorities is tax revenue. And in order to get more tax revenue, they have to please the foreign MNCs. All right, I'm going to show you this. I've explained, yes, aging population, we need foreign labor, but no, not in SSH mode. If we want to replace all those who have retired, 20% of the population, 700,000 only. Why do you need 2 million people, 2 million foreign labor, or 1.5 million people foreign labor? It doesn't make sense, right? Correct or not? It's a simple mathematics. Okay. So by expanding the population, you need to build infrastructure. You need to build more bus depot. You need to build more MRT station, MRT tracks, railways. You need to build more infrastructure to supply water, right? New water plants, desalination plants, and all that. But who bear the cost? We already know. They add on the cost of the water. They add on the cost of electricity tariff. They all add on the cost of public transport fares. It's us who bear the cost. Now, is that fair? Right? They plan to increase population so that the government can get more revenue, tax revenue, right? But you bear the cost of building all the infrastructures to cater for that population. And how do they actually manage? Now, if the government, the PAP government, is really doing all these policies for the benefits of Singaporeans, right? The usual case that they will raise, if we do not have foreign laborers, who is going to build your HDB flats? Construction workers, right? No Singaporeans will do construction workers, right? So only the foreign laborers will do construction, right? And who is going to clear your rubbish? Right? Very few Singaporeans want to clean the rubbish, right? So we need foreign laborers. That is their rhetoric. I say rhetoric. I put it the other way. If these people are so important, construction workers, cleaners, right? Then why is PAP government imposing the highest workers levy on these people? If we need them so much, why are you imposing the highest workers' levy on these people? Which this job that very few Singaporeans want to do. If you impose high levies, no, the construction workers I was told, right? The highest levy can go up to $1,000, $1,200 per month to get one construction workers. Is that madness? Correct. And what is the impact when you impose such a high levy on these construction workers, foreign labor, the migrant workers, which are doing the jobs that Singaporeans do not want to do? You increase the cost of construction, then those who buy HDB flats will have to pay more. All these costs will transfer to Singaporeans again. Okay. Now, what is the purpose? The purpose is this. Because these construction workers, the cleaners, foreign labor, migrant workers, will not have earned enough income to be taxable, to contribute to the coffers. IRAS cannot tax them because they are low income earners. But 他们不放过. I must earn tax revenue from them. That's why they impose the highest levy on this group of people, this group of migrant workers, which is not in direct competition with most, almost 95% of Singaporeans. Correct not? So they are not protecting us. They are not protecting, securing our jobs. It's purely for tax revenue. Very simple. Mr. Lotiakan have ever said about this, but he didn't explain it in a clear way. In fact, no other opposition or anybody explained it in a very clear way. Right? Mr. Lotiakan have ever said this. Workers' levy have become the opium for the PAP government. Why he say that? Because it's good money. Right? 上瘾了, right? The more the merrier. There's no justification or whatsoever to impose such a high levy, workers' levy on migrant workers who are doing the jobs that not many people, Singaporeans, are willing to do. But on the other hand, for those jobs that Singaporeans want to do, the PMAP jobs, right? The S-Pass, E-Pass, you do not need to pay any workers' levy. So if you are a government that actually protects the jobs for Singaporeans, or to secure the jobs of Singaporeans, job security, you are all thinking about Singaporeans, you should be putting more levies, right, on these jobs, this foreign labor that is doing all these jobs. So they have the inverse relationship. They did the reverse. Why? Because EP or S-Pass people are earning salaries that's high enough for them to tax. They have tax revenue, ma. Correct. So this is a misnomer. We have a government that do not put Singaporeans as its priority. Whatever he says about, we will not create more jobs for Singaporeans if we do not have foreign talent, is a false premise. The main purpose is for tax revenue. If you still cannot understand this explanation that I put forward, right? Let's imagine this. This is a story. This is actually a real life story, right? My friend, I've told this story some time ago. I refreshed this. My friend was in top management role for MNCs who in the food supply. Right? He during the COVID time, right? These MNCs have two main HQ in Asia. One is in Singapore, the other one is in China. Right? During COVID time, the Chinese, the Shanghai, the Chinese HQ actually lose money. Right? Singapore HQ, under his marketing strategies leadership, earns money, right? Profitable. So they are restructuring, right? They close down the China HQ, right? But the armor will be those who are overlooking the HQ down there will lose their job, right? But never mind. They transfer these people, those who have lose money, who did not perform during the COVID time, whatever reasons, to Singapore, but sack my friend and displace him in the process. Is it right for you? It's because of this absurd foreign labor policy, right? That's mismanaged. Because MNCs, all these jobs doesn't have quota one, right? Those MNCs have a pre-approved quota or pre-approved numbers. Some are given because this quota system is not transparent, right? Always case by case basis. And most of the time, those big companies, GLCs or the MNCs, have more favorable terms than the small and medium companies, the local companies. And please bear in mind, the SME in Singapore are the ones who employ the most Singaporeans, not the MNCs, right? Not the MNCs, not even the GLCs. Apart from the civil service, the SME are the biggest employers for Singaporeans. And why is this so? Because the quota system disadvantage the local SME. Right? Why? You have quota, you have levies, then you can make money, ma. But when it comes to the big MNCs, why they do not have quota or impose high levies on their demand of foreign labor? Why? Their workers' levy, the levies on the S pass and the S pass are sometimes quite minimum, $50 sometimes only, compared to the 1,002 on the construction workers. Because to the government it's very simple. These MNCs can generate revenue, tax revenue for the government. See the point? So the whole structure of this foreign labor policy is so skewed. It's never about Singaporeans. It's never about Singaporeans' jobs. Because MNCs, we already know, it was the SME who employed the most Singaporeans, not the MNCs, not the GRCs, not the big companies. Why? Because they are given better deal to employ foreigners. In fact, displacing a lot of local PMAPs. This is a very sad fact that we are facing. As long as someone can give good tax revenue to the government, right, they will give all the goodies to them. It's never about protecting our jobs in these MNCs, to give our local talent the job opportunities in this network. And they keep saying that, oh, our locals doesn't have the experience. How can you have experience, international exposure, when you are disadvantaged, when you are easily displaced or replaced by foreigners in the MNCs? It's a chicken and egg thing, right or not? If you continue to believe PAP's narrative, I think you are going to be fooled, right? Completely fooled for the rest of your life, right? This is what is happening. Think about it. How many people that you know, Singapore citizens, right, have lost their job, and right after, his or her position has been replaced by a foreigner? It might not happen to you, but how many people do you know have faced this problem? And the problem is this: I always tell people, Australia actually also need foreign talent, right? But their foreign talent is very well managed. The foreign labor policy, they go by the point system, right? For example, if you know about plumbing, you are an electrician or a plumber, right? Handyman. The authorities in Australia will take a look, review what is needed, what are the jobs vacancies that the local Australian cannot do or could not do, or in shortage in that sector, the labor, right? They will have a point system, right? Even you do not have a university certificate, it's okay. But if you can become a plumber, you are good in plumbing, right? They will they grant you the PR here to go to Australia to work. But on the other hand, if there are already people in Australia who can do certain jobs which they do not need foreign talent at all, even you have all the certificate you have, right? All the degrees you have, they will not welcome you. Just simple as that. It's by the needs of this industry, the needs of the jobs perspective, and most important, to secure the jobs of their own people first. They are not open for all. They protect their own people jobs first. But in Singapore, it's the reverse. Right? For jobs that Singaporeans do not want to do, right? They have one quota lah, they have a high levy lah, whatever it is. But for the jobs that Singapore wants to do, the PMAP jobs, the cozy office jobs, the IT jobs, the finance jobs, right? They don't have quota. Or nobody knows what's the quota. It varies. It depends on whether the companies can make money and give enough tax revenue or not. That's what they care. Not about the needs of the industry, or not about the shortage of labor of the industry, not about the supply, whether we have enough supply of local people to that industry. They do not care. That will contrast how other countries like Australia manage their foreign labor policy versus how PAP manage their foreign labor policy. And no wonder we have more and more people who were forced out and become underemployed, become Grab drivers, PhD drivers, private hired drivers, who become Grab food deliveries, who become freelancer. And mind you, when you reach 40 or 45 years old, that is the most dangerous time of your career. The most dangerous time of your career. My friend suffered when he reached 51. And once you are being retrenched or displaced by the foreigners, you can never find any jobs, because in Singapore, due to the openness of their foreign labor policy in the PMAP sector, They can always find cheaper, younger, faster labor from overseas. Why they need an older person who actually costs more? Even if you want to reduce your salary, expected salary, and when you offered or ask for a reduced salary, it means what? A reduction in your standard of living. And with the contrast of an increase of cost of living, you're going to be very disadvantaged. But a lot of people settle for that. Even if some of them actually reduce their expectation of salaries, they cannot get employed. Why? Because human beings being human beings, when you have a large group of people from one certain village, one certain countries, they always take care of their own people. They are not like Singaporeans. They are not like Singapore PAP government. They will always take care of their own kind, whether it's from India, Philippines, or China. That is why you see once you MNCs or whichever companies start to have certain people from certain countries, over the years you will see, wow, suddenly the whole village come because that's their prevailing nationalistic hiring policies, hiring people. They introduce their own people. Wow, down here got good salary. Ho Kang, come. Only Singaporeans are so stupid. They're being betrayed by the PAP government. Now, I'm not xenophobic. Huh? I'm just expressing the human nature as per se. I'm not against foreign labours. I have said we need foreign labours, or else our aging population in Singapore will have problems. It's a legitimate reason, definitely. But what is what is originally legitimate have turned into the excuse for the PAP to go for the tax revenue instead. Turn it to the extreme. And this should not be allowed at the expense of our job security, at the expense of we paying more for everything just for the government to build infrastructure to cater for more, even more foreign laborers to come in. Now imagine this. Imagine this. We're 3.7 million people right now. By the time we have 6.9 million people by 2030, I think it's very fast. I think it's achievable. That was in the white paper. So they do this white paper is not for fun one, because every year they are giving out 20,000 to 30,000 new citizenship, right? And our population is actually going up. Well, within 1 year or two, I think within 1 year. Last year, the population figures that we have initially, or 2021, right after the COVID ends, end of 2021, our population is about 5.4 million. And within a few months, about 1 year, suddenly I read the figures, wow, 6 million already. So 6.9 million is actually just a couple of years within reach by this rate of increment. So 6.9 is not just a target, as they say. Back in 2011, after the GE 201, they have this white paper of 6.9 million. Then people start to attack them, big hoo-ha and all that. They start to say, oh, there's not a firm target. There's actually figures, just the figures. Just the figures you put in the white paper. Now remember, whatever PAP put in the white paper, they will meet that target. 6.9 million will not be just a figure, it will be a reality. And you have to ask yourself, do we need that type of population? Even though we have an aging population. As explained, even though we have give you 30% of people who are past 65, the retirement age. 30% of 4 million people by then, right? 30%. How many million people is retired? 1.2 million people. But 4 million people as compared to 6.9, we have a difference of almost 3 million people. Does it actually make sense to you? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. It's a simple calculation. No magic. Right? Right? There's no magic. It's all facts. Simple calculation. So please go back and digest this. I know this is very heavy stuff because not many people actually can look at this thing from that type of perspective. Because we have been attacking this SICA, this foreign labor policy, left and right, and they have a counter argument, but without getting to the root. You must see through what is a PAP's intention in this foreign labor policy. What is the real intention? It's not about your job security, definitely not, right? Because by the way they structure the workers' levy, you know already, it's all for the tax revenue. People, foreign labor, that they cannot tax their income, they use the workers' levy to tax them, right? Those so-called foreign talent who are in direct competition with our people in the jobs our people want, they did not tax them heavily in so-called the levy. If they are really about protecting our jobs, which all government in the world should do, and that is what the Japanese are doing, that's what the Chinese are doing. Right? Every country with a dignity will protect their people's own rice bowl. Instead of telling their people that, oh, your lunch will be stolen, as if it got nothing to do with the PAP policy. It's precisely because of the PAP policy that our lunch have been stolen. Absolute nonsense when I read how they debate it. The narrative is all flawed logic, without any common sense. And yet, what 60%, 70% of Singaporeans voters actually voted for them. I cannot understand. I cannot understand. I'm not the brightest people in this country, okay? It's just that when I look at it, it's very clear to me. Singaporeans are no longer the priorities of this government. Yet people are still voting for them. Think about it when you start to vote next general election. Think carefully. If you still cannot get it, you can go back to these videos, watch it repeatedly, what I have said. I put it in a very logical way, systematic, logical, commonsensical way of dissecting this issue. It's nothing to be how much is too many. It's not even about whether it's come from India or come from Malaysia or come from China. It doesn't matter to me. For me, it's very simple. Does it benefit our own people? Full stop. Or have the PAP government open the floodgate for people to steal or rob our lunch while they collect all the tax revenue they want. whether it's through levy or otherwise, or JST. It is something for you to think about. Thank you and good night.